I have declared a local emergency and issued a curfew for downtown Los Angeles.
They were told they'd be arrested if they were on the streets past 8 p.m, and yet still they marched. On this, the fifth day of protests in Los Angeles, the mayor announced a curfew for a small part of downtown, the latest chapter in this battle between state officials and the president over who's in control and how widespread the damage is.
It is extremely important to know that what is happening in this 1 square mile is not affecting the city. Some of the imagery of the protests and the violence gives the appearance as though this is a citywide crisis, and it is not.
The LA Police Department said they'd made 197 arrests on Tuesday. Throughout the day, officers marshaled and pushed back protesters. The majority have been peaceful, but on Monday night, 23 businesses were looted, prompting the curfew. With police appearing to control the situation, the question once again is whether the presence of federalized National Guard and 700 active US Marines is necessary on the streets of LA. With the cost of their deployment more than £100 million, the governor of California called it a waste of money, as he filed an emergency motion to block the president from expanding the powers of the National Guard.
He again chose escalation. He chose more force. He chose theatrics over public safety. He federalized another 2,000 Guard members. He deployed more than 700 active U.S. Marines. These are the men and women trained for foreign combat, not domestic law enforcement.
As the governor spoke, Donald Trump was on the other side of the country watching US troops in action at Fort Bragg, soldiers preparing for wars abroad, although the president claimed there was a battle at home too, as he defended his response to the LA protests.
Generations of Army heroes did not shed their blood on distant shores only to watch our country be destroyed by invasion and third world lawlessness here at home, like is happening in California. As Commander-in-Chief, I will not let that happen. It's never going to happen. What you're witnessing in California is a full-blown assault on peace, on public order, and on national sovereignty carried out by rioters bearing foreign flags with the aim of continuing a foreign invasion of our country. We're not going to let that happen.
This event was meant to mark the 250th anniversary of the US Army, but the president's use of the military optics to tout his political agenda is why so many Democrats and other critics are sounding the alarm about how far Trump wants to push his powers.
This isn't just about protests here in Los Angeles. When Donald Trump sought blanket authority to commandeer the National Guard, he made that order apply to every state in this nation. This is about all of us. This is about you. California may be first, but it clearly will not end here. Other states are next. Democracy is next. Democracy is under assault before our eyes. This moment we have feared has arrived.
That fear has filtered to other cities and other states. In Chicago, hundreds turned out on the streets in solidarity. Scuffles broke out, with some dragged away by police. These demonstrations are not just about the use of the military by President Trump, but sweeping immigration raids across the country, with those in large democratic cities believing they're being deliberately targeted by the administration. Hence, people have protested in Philadelphia, New York City, and here in Atlanta.
Unite and fight for immigrant rights!
Texas has also seen disturbances in the capital, Austin, and Dallas. But these are Democrat cities in a deeply Republican state, and the Texas governor, Greg Abbott, has said he will deploy the National Guard to, quote, use every tool and strategy to help law enforcement maintain order. That's different to California, where the governor never called up the National Guard, the president did. It seems clear that while these protests are about immigration policy and the powers of the president, it's now also a political dispute about who runs their cities and states better.
It's really an interesting time in America and in American politics. Republicans are governing well, and we are delivering on our promises, and we are bringing solutions, and we're working around the clock every day to make sure that that is delivered for the people as we promised them last year on the campaign trail. Meanwhile, Democrats are engaging in the applause of destruction of cities and all sorts of chaos. The contrast is so clear, and everybody can see it.
With parts of LA under curfew, 700 Marines to be deployed on Wednesday, Texas now sending in their National Guard, and more protests planned over the coming days, this is a crucial moment in Donald Trump's second term. It is a test of his presidential power and his mandate, and whether Republicans or Democrats win this argument about immigration, law and order, and democracy.
To some extent, people do like to see some action happening. They're glad to see, an activist president after what we've had for the last several years. Does he have a tendency to take that too far? Absolutely. I am convinced that if Donald Trump would settle for 90% of what he wants, he would be hugely successful and pretty popular. The fact of the matter is that's not who he is as a person or a politician, and he insists on trying for 125% of what he wants. If you look at what's happening with illegal immigration, people absolutely support closing down the borders. They absolutely support deporting criminals, especially violent criminals. They are not so excited about someone coming into, a high school graduation or a court hearing and taking up people who have, for the most part, lived their lives here pretty peacefully and productively. So he does have a tendency to overplay his hand. It's interesting because so much of it depends on how the protesters, and in some case rioters, play this out over the course of the next week. To the extent that he's calling in the National Guard because property is being set on fire, people are absolutely going to support him. If the protesters would limit themselves to a peaceful march through downtown LA, and he still, called in the Marines, called in the National Guard, then it would be a very different situation. 5 minutes from now, we could find out that there was a violent clash between protesters who to that point had been peaceful and the National Guard, in which case opinion might turn against President Trump. But one of his big mandates was to deal with illegal immigration. And while he may not do it the way, sort of the sensible middle in the US would prefer, he does have a mandate to deal with it. To the extent that there's, violent attempts to stop him from doing it, people will support his actions. The devil's going to be in the details over the course of the next week or two.